PS2, well, not Mindy Skip, really, but yeah, PS2 can now compete in no port storage via ball storage. There'll probably be a lot of mic pops because I'm going to say PlayStation and PS, so yeah, sorry about that. Also, if this music is way too cheery, then I'm sorry, bruv. I literally typed in video game music remix like I always do, and this was the first result that I hadn't already clicked on, so I was like, fuck it, bro. And I know I haven't used the video before because it got apparently uploaded 2 hours ago, so yeah. Alright, so, need a little bit of context, right? We have known for a very long time about a weird effect. There's basically an effect on PS2, BBBH to Sundae, that's all it is. And then if you try to scroll down, it removes a task from, I think, Plank. And then if you try to scroll past that, the game crashes. But if you use PCSX2 to bypass the crash, it appears that the Neptune Warp is unlocked. Like, it looks like half unlocked, but it's not actually unlocked. And we've never seen anything like that on Xbox, so there was always the idea of like, oh, well, maybe, you know, PS2 could just unlock the Sundae Warp. But nobody actually tested it, because testing it on actual console would be a genuine nightmare, because of how unbelievably slow the loads are. Whereas, you know, we know the ZEMU is good, but PCSX2, we couldn't trust its accuracy for shit. Like, we tried it, like, a year or two ago, and it was just bad. We would, like, load into GESC, and then it would crash on PCSX2, but not on actual console, and, you know, stuff like that with, like, GESC and Plank Combat, and it was just like, what the fuck is this? However, that changed, I don't know when, but they introduced something with a recent PCSX2 update, called, like, TLB miss, which basically, makes it so that it'll crash when console is supposed to crash, and I use that, and I compared it to Knucklehead testing I had already done on PS2, and it was matching. I mean, obviously, well, theoretically, the types of crashes could have been slightly different or whatever, like, there still could have been some memory fuckery. For example, ZEMU used to get some fairly accurate, console results, but not always, and we didn't realize, because of how long it took to realize the ZEMU wasn't, well, we got lucky with an update that then made it accurate shortly after, but yeah, it was just like a whole thing. Dude, I don't think this, playlist, it was not a playlist, it's a compilation, I don't think it, like, remixes, or mixes the sound well, because it was hitting, like, over minus 35 decibels, and now it's hitting minus 40, but I don't want to have to adjust that the whole video, bro. But yeah, basically, PCSX2 seemed to be accurate, and it has big advantages over ZEMU for testing. It actually has a speed-up option, which just makes things so much better. Additionally, I didn't give a... because I knew that the console was accurate, that the emulator was accurate to console, I didn't give a fuck about console-accurate crashing. If I know it's accurate, why do I need TLB miss enabled? Why would I need it enabled? It's like, oh, well, you know, if something comes up, it'd still be nice to know. Dude, my alternative was not testing on PS2. Like, I was just not going to if I actually had to, you know. But, like, it was great for knowing that it is accurate to console, but why would I actually want that for testing if we're trying to find shit from it, you know? So, with that in mind, I got to some PS2 testing because I'm unironically a little addicted to ball storage testing, and because I was just curious with Sundae. The thing is, as well, is that Sundae is the best, other than Knucklehead, which had already been tested. Sundae is the best level in the game to do ball storage testing on, right? Ball storage testing, especially on PS2, because of that menu thing. But for both consoles, they both have the similarity. Well, okay. PS2 has the warp unlock, but they would both benefit from a goob freeze to then treat the level like like the first challenge, like a time challenge. Granted, on PS2, you'd only be able to burn like fucking 2 or 3 Dennis loads, but still, theoretically, that was something. It has the out of bounds triggers, where if you pass through them, and then the finish line trigger will just be enabled, and then you can beat the level super quickly. Again, on PS2, you really could not test that many loads, but that was still something. Especially because on PS2, we have corrupted a Hans trigger to change its X coordinates to X equals 0. That is a thing that's been proven on PS2. So, if you can corrupt a Hans trigger to X equals 0, why can't you corrupt just any random trigger to Y equals 0? So that was the idea. Time Challenge has its own unique one as well, but I can't be asked to test that, especially just because of how much of a pipe dream it is. Like, you could probably do something to the trigger, but, like, you know, there's a lot of assets in the level, and then it needs to very specifically be Y equals 0 or a very low number, and it's just like, eh. And PS2 is just obviously not as ideal for testing because it's PS2 and not Xbox. Because, you know, if I'm doing any testing for PS2, that's testing I could have done for Xbox. That's another reason, Oh yeah, and also Sundae could have a task skip, because on PS2, not Xbox, PS2, it has MS effects. And the only levels that we've seen to do anything with any sort of task corruption, they all require... They're all the same levels that have MS effects, which very heavily implies that they need to have MS effects to also have a task skip. Well, Sundae has that on PS2, so even we might even be able to do that. Oh, a task skip, you know, fuck it. Yeah, let's do it. So for all those reasons, it just made all the sense in the world to... Well, not all the sense in the world, but, like, it was, other than Knucklehead, the absolute best level you could test on PS2. Because every other level, other than the menu thing, every other level is literally just like, oh, task skip. You know what I mean? Which is unlikely in itself, especially because PS2 just simply can't test as many loads. But another reason why I was, encouraged to test PlayStation is because Xbox testing has really hit a rut. I guess now would be a good time to, show it, but basically, the only levels, it isn't... Like, obviously, again, we're looking for MS effects and things similar to it. The only chains that have ever done anything like that, I realized, like, a couple months ago, are non-Patrick levels, like SCDA Spongeball, and Depression Combat, and BBBH Combat. I don't know what this one does. Okay, well, this one didn't do it, but Dennis 2 has stuff in Rockslide. These are all SpongeBob-only levels. Patrick is not loaded into the INI for those levels at all. And so, therefore, then, I was able to just... Obviously, theoretically, there could be something, but, like, within any realm of reasonability whatsoever, we should really just be testing the non-Patrick levels, which I've already done for everything, with at least one task for every single sliding and driving level. So, with that in mind... Well, then, if it just felt like there was nothing else to test, I was still occasionally like, oh, yeah, fuck it, like, once a day, I'll do, like, a weenie chain or something, but obviously I never, it's just, like, an obligation thing that doesn't take too long if you just do one chain a day, but obviously in the long term, that's just insanely slow progression, even on Zemu where the loads are fast. Still just aids, you know? Because it also is just a thing as well, like, Patrick costumes aren't even worth testing if they are completely incapable of a task skip. Because what could we possibly want other than a task skip? I will say very recently, because we found an Xbox effect that corrupts, a Hans trigger to just not work. So for Rockslide, there were, like, 3 Hans triggers where it could be useful. And we don't have any proof of, like, oh, it needs to be, like, an SB plus Pat level or an SB only level, you know, like, we just, like... So that's theoretically something, but testing that would take 500 eternities. Well, not for, because the only level it'd be useful for is Rock Slide, so it would take hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, but it wouldn't be, like, the most absurd thing in the world. But obviously, with all that said, and with PS2 testing, especially if you don't get it, because it is still possible for PS2 to crash, PCSX2, even with TLB disabled. It's still very much possible for it to crash. Those crashes tend to close the emulator, which is really annoying, but it's still way less common, and I have an issue on ZEMU where save stating usually takes like a minute, whereas on PCSX2 it's always instant. And again, there aren't as many loads to test. If you don't get any crashes, you can literally test a chain in like fucking 7, maybe like, yeah, probably like 7 minutes. Like, so it only takes like a couple hours to fill out the entire sheet for default. So yeah, no wonder I felt incentivized to test, right? So I tested every level on PS2, like every chain for default. I still to this day haven't tested Mimi Man, because now there's kind of no point. Very little point anyway. Like, theoretically there could be a point, but eh. So yeah, I tested everything. My initial theory, was that it needed to be an SB plus Pat level. Because again, like that half Neptune unlock thing, and it's like fucking with the task menu, that was with BBBH, which is an SB plus Pat level. So I assumed that the non-Pat levels, so the SB only levels, I just assumed they wouldn't be capable. I still checked the menu just because it was very quick to check, but I still didn't actually have my hopes up. I just assumed it just wouldn't be able to do it. So the very last chain I tested, because, well, okay. Technically, for a task unlock, you could test beyond, Sundae 1, because you could just load to Sundae 2. And if you can load to Sundae 2, then we could test Dennis 2, Plank 1, Plank 2, and, Plank Sponge Bowl. However, I didn't know if the different tasks would, like, potentially fuck with anything. I was going to test them, but I was going to test them after, like, the main levels that could be tested in Sundae 1. Especially because doing it in Sundae 1 is just the most convenient, ideal thing. Because then you might be able to chain it with, like, a task skip, or just, you know, or, like, a goob freeze. Like, just, I'm talking, like, completely, you know, theoretical shit, like, best case scenario, but, like, you know what I mean. So I still haven't tested those levels, because now there's no point. Well, not literally no point, but again, it's like, eh. So the very last chain I tested was Now That We're Men Combat, default. I was gonna test Mimi Man for everything as well, and then I was gonna do, you know, Dennis 2 onwards. But yeah, the default, this was the last chance, like, without passing Sundae 1. So, the chain, there's a pretty interesting thing that happens if you do Now That We're Men, oh my god, I'm walking around a lot. So you do Now That We're Men Combat, right? So you don't have to set up bowl storage, like, in Now That We're Men Combat. You could technically set it up somewhere else and then warp to Now That We're Men Combat, but there's no reason to do that. You should just do it in Now That We're Men Combat for the initial time. We'll get to that later. Then you do non-SB times 4. So 1, 2, and again, like, you can see how just fast this is. This is why testing is so bussin'. So you do Now That We're Men Combat, non-SB times 4, which ideally is Dennis, because, again, like, well, Dennis is, like, the fastest level to burn loads for, unless you can substitute other non-SB loads for, like, during a chain, but assuming you can't do that, Dennis is the best, because it's an extremely tiny level, and it has, no scrolling necessary to re-warp to it. But yeah, so Now That We're Men Combat, I keep saying it, sorry, but I just want to make sure it's 100% clear. Now That We're Men Combat, non-SB times 4, Sundae driving. That's pretty interesting. It's a bit glitched. But it looks like, it made the first task of every level appear visible. But it says challenge not available. I wonder what happens if you try to warp. Now, I will say, you do need to, like, you need to warp to Neptune now, because otherwise, like, that warp unlock will go away. So you need to do all, like, that load burning, and then go to Sundae, just to unlock the Neptune warp and warp to it. But then you do something afterwards, but again, we'll get to that in a bit, because that's, like, a very minor thing in comparison. This is big. This is a theoretical thing that we've known for almost as long as ball storage has been known about in fucking early 2020. It probably wasn't, like, exactly early 20, but again, I might be but I believe since, like, I mean, I might be misremembering, but at the very least, from, like, I would imagine, like, 2023 onwards, we've known about, like, the BBBH thing, probably earlier than that, even. So the idea's always been there, and it doesn't just have to be Sundae, it could theoretically be any level, right? But this is, like, almost the best case scenario. I mean, you only have to burn 4 non-SB loads, and you don't need to equip a costume. That is insanely lucky. That is insanely lucky. And it doesn't require plank, like, I know this in itself would be unlucky, but, like, could you imagine if you needed plank sponge bowl or something? Like, something that just takes ages to grab? Or, like, oh, like, it would work, but there's, like, a flickering PBC, like those really, like, those randomly adjusting ones where there's still, like, a random chance to crash whenever. Or, like, oh, that's another thing. It doesn't matter, your load count doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. You literally just fucking, you just do it. It's amazing. Load count doesn't matter, which is, like, I wish Mindy Skip load count didn't matter, dude. But, yeah. And now that I'm in combat, like, yeah, it takes, like, 3 seconds to grab the warp, and you have to remember to grab the warp, but, like, that's a very minor thing, like, come on. And then now that I'm in combat in itself is a quick level to set it up in, because it's a small level. And then Dennis has no issues. You can just burn Dennis the whole time. And then Sundae has no issues, and it just all fucking works. That quickly? Like, because here's the thing, right? I wasn't going to test it to this extent, but because compared to no major glitches, this would save so much time for PS2. You could burn, like, you could literally burn, like, at least 100 loads. I wasn't going to, but you could. It took fucking including Sundae, it took 5 non-SB loads when it could have taken over 100. That is unreal. That is insanely lucky. And it's still hard to believe that this is a thing. I found this, by the way, but I couldn't have done it without, obviously, Resin figuring out how ball storage works, Chatter even finding that initial effect, or else I wouldn't have been incentivized to look in the first place. Me, for being crazy enough to test this, and already testing everything on Xbox. And then, Foggy for finding Mindy Skip, because that's what allowed us to, you know, understand the like, even begin understanding ball storage and, you know, what it can theoretically do. And it made the game more popular as well, to get more runners in, to then, you know... Because Resin only looked into this game because he saw that the game got accepted into GDQ. And again, I don't think NMG is a bad category, but let's be real. Like, I don't think like if no post storage didn't exist, I don't think NMG would have gotten into GDQ. I just don't think it would have. It already took this long to get no post storage into GDQ, and maybe and Sam was the one who got no post storage into GDQ. So that's another person who's effectively responsible for this, by extension. But then Resin couldn't have done it without the BFB decomp and the Incredibles prototype. There's so many layers to this, but then yeah, BFB wouldn't be nearly as popular if it went for the speedrunning community, and then the speedrunning community would be nothing if Shift didn't get into the game in 2016. It just, like, the layers are fucking insane. But I am the person if you just want to look at it completely individually, just purely this, I did find this. This is the second biggest time save in movie history. The only thing that beats this is fucking pause storage. Unless you want to count Xbox pause storage as a separate thing, because of how different it is, but even then, this would be the third biggest thing. This saves more time on PS2 than it does on Xbox, because, well, if you have the Neptune unlock, right? Why would you need Plank Area 2? Why would you need Knucklehead? That's right, you skip Monumental and Knucklehead. I've had this idea for ages, like... Well, my idea on Xbox was, like, oh, if we could find a way to, like, beat the Monumental statue, like, the boss, without, guitar, then we could use it and Knucklehead as our final two tokens to replace Gesk, Time, and SCDA Floating Block. But this is much bigger a task. We're calling this Ghost Warp, by the way. We're calling it a Ghost Warp, because it's still not, like... It still says that you can't warp to it, but then you can, so it's like a Ghost Warp. We were gonna call it Blank Warps, but people liked Ghost Warp, so that's what we're doing instead. But yeah. This... Like, again, this is unbelievably big. This allows PS2 to compete in no pause storage. Oh, and there's another thing with this as well, right? I don't know if this would be the case on like, the slowest PS2 versions, but it is definitely the case on PSN, and probably as well, like, backwards compatible PS3. In the run, you would want to do Sundae skip. Sundae is one of the worst splits in no pause storage, and we can fucking skip it, right? Because there's nothing stopping you from reactivating that effect that you just saw. It doesn't just unlock Neptune, it unlocks the first task for every level. So, what do you think we do, right? We just do the effect all over again, and then we warp, instead of doing Sundae, we warp to fucking Gesk. And then we do Gesk Ring. Because Gesk Ring is like 2 minutes faster than Sundae, and then yeah, you gotta spend time like burning the loads. But I don't think that's losing 2 minutes. And even if it is, are you really gonna do Sundae jump on PS2? Are you gonna do Spiral Skip? Like, are you really gonna do that? So yeah, we just skip Sundae, which is great because it is probably... It depends on who you ask, but in my opinion, on Xbox, I think it's the third worst split in the game. The worst, I would argue, is Weenie. It's either Weenie or Knucklehead. Like, those two, they're really neck and neck. The reason why I think Weenie is worse than Knucklehead is because Knucklehead, it still has Mindy skip at the beginning, and at least, like, it's more justifiable for a late-game split to have nothing going on, because you're trying to compose yourself, you're trying to recover from nerves, and you want time to think before entering Neptune. Weenie is an early game. Well, again, it depends, but, like, it's pre-Rock Slide. It's early enough in the run. So it's just kind of lame, because, like, the pacing, because of Rock Slide Rewind, is really good now. But then, well, it's mostly good. The pacing is just great. And then you have Kid Named Weenie, which is over 3 minutes long, before doing Frogfish, which is under a minute. And then you do Rock Slide, which is on the longer side, but because you get 2 tokens from it, and you do Tricks, it is infinitely better than Weenie. And then you have Nalverman and SCDA and Dennis, which... And even then, like, I would argue... Honestly, I think Sundae is better than Gesk, not Gesk, Weenie. Because Sundae is not even a minute long, it's like 55-ish seconds longer. But you do 3 tricks, and well, technically 4, and... Actually, yeah, no, and health management matters more. Like, at least that's something. Your Weenie has out of bounds, but, like, you're not doing that. But, so I would say the Knucklehead is... Well, Sunday's, like, the 3rd worst one. Knucklehead is the 2nd worst one. And they're both gone. Granted, I think for the coolness factor, I think... Because Gesk Ring is fucking lame, and it has Fake Ring. So, like, I think when it comes to individual tokens, I'd probably rather this not be a thing. I might as well have some gameplay going on in the background. Oops. But you can scroll down. I didn't know you could do that. That might be a new thing. I didn't know you could do that. But when it comes to, like, segments, I would rather do guess 2. I mean, you would do time anyway, but, like, yeah. The pacing has improved again. Now the worst split for PS2, no pause storage. It probably just is the split where you activate the 2 effects. Like, for the Neptune Warp, it depends on, like, how you approach the splits, but generally what you're gonna do is that after Dennis, you do Throwing Fruit, then you do Now the Man Combat to, like, set that up, and then you do, like, SCDA Floating Block, Dennis, Sundae, Neptune, Now the Men Combat again, Dennis, Sundae, and then you warp to Gask. So I would argue the worst split in the game is probably either Weenie again, just because Weenie itself hasn't changed. Technically it's even worse for a minor reason I'll get into later, but that's like really grasping straws. So the worst split is probably either Weenie or just like SCDA 2. Because you're probably gonna have an individual split for BBBH, so yeah, it probably, like, literally is SCDA 2. Because of what's attached to it. And then, the other reason is because doing Floating Block is part of it. You don't have buffers anymore, so buffering that token is really, really cringe. And then there is, like, a death strat you can do, but, like, you're still banking on that. And then it's, like, not... It's hardly saving anything compared to just burning another Dennis load. In itself, because otherwise you lose another SCDA load, so it's, I don't know, it's kind of fucked. But yeah, worst split in the game is either SCDA 2, or because you do one actual thing and then the rest of it is wholly filler, or it's Weenie. So yeah, it's up to you to this. And some people are actually not even doing SCDA Floating Block. And even then, some people are just going to do it in SCDA 1. Which I would argue with then is probably not worth it. I mean, it depends. But yeah, that's very, like... I'm trying, because there's a lot on my mind, so I apologize. Like, it's really hard to ensure that I'm getting everything across. But yeah, this is a really big deal in itself. Except for one very, like, major thing, right? Because you might just be thinking, well, PS2's loads are so fucking slow, I can't compete with Xbox anyway, but at least it's a starting point. Like, this has objectively made the game more accessible, because no pause storage is the most popular category, and now and there are 3 versions of the game, and 2 of them are now able to play the most popular category in the game, and even then... PS2, even if you have to deal with the slower loads, at the end of the day, it is an easier version of the game at the beginner level, and even the intermediate level, arguably, because it's skipping... Well, it's just skipping more content. And the load count doesn't matter. It's fucking... And PS2 doesn't have sandwich crash. It still has a Mindy stib, but if you don't care about that, then... Yeah, doesn't even have fucking sandwich crash, so you might not even feel obligated to reset and to soft reset the console in sandwich driving. But here's where it all falls apart, and I'm just gonna be 100% honest and say that I wouldn't have looked for this if I thought of this. PSN. As in the digital PS3 version. There is a version of this game that was released officially on the digital store for PlayStation 3. It really didn't take long at all for it to get taken down. But it is a real thing that exists. Well, not anymore, obviously, they took it down. But it was entirely realistic in that time to buy it, and then it's tied to your PlayStation account. So as long as you don't lose your PlayStation account, or I guess as long as you have a PS3 still, you could play it. Well, how big of a deal is that, right? I mean, at the end of the day, think of it this way, right? On Xbox, you gain control, like, from starting a new game to gaining control in No Cheese. It's about 9.2-ish seconds, like 9.1 to, like, 9.4 seconds. I'm about to show you, a PS2, like, a No Cheese load, done by Latte on the PSN version. Latte is playing on official hard drive. However, we basically have to allow SSD, because SSD greatly improves the longevity of the console, and a lot of other games allow it anyway. And well, for example, I have 2 PS3s, and one of them literally just had a fucked hard drive when I bought it. Like, so it is important, and it's an easy way to increase storage of the console, which is like an ideal thing they'd want to do anyway. We simply just have to allow it, and there are a bunch, well, I say a bunch, there are other, like, speed games that allow it anyways, and then, you know. So basically, we have to allow SSD, but Latte is on hard drive, official hard drive. Look at this no cheese load. I will speed it up, but just look at the timer, right? So these aren't the fastest loads you can get on PSN, but watch this. That is about 14.5 seconds, right? And no cheese is just like the most inconsistent, worst load in the game. And it is only losing like 5.2? Because PS2, one of PS2's advantages is that it can instantly skip FMVs. On Xbox, it takes 2 seconds, and even then, it likes to lag spike afterwards. No lag spike on PS2, that's a pretty minor thing, but yeah, you can just instantly skip. I think on actual PS2, I think it, like, still, like, struggles to process that you skipped it a bit, but it's still saving time, but even then, on PSN, like, that looked pretty fucking instant to me. So yeah, the loads on PS2 for full platforming levels on PSN are only about twice as long as on Xbox, maybe a teeny bit less, maybe a teeny bit more. It's kind of hard to say. And then for sliding and driving levels, they're roughly 50% longer. So I would imagine for the smaller platforming levels, like, you know, Natherman Combat, or like Plank Combat, Dennis, it's probably anywhere between like 1/3 longer to like 50% longer. There are a lot of loads throughout the run, especially on PS2, because, well, I say especially on, yeah, I mean, it probably has the same amount as, because of how many loads you need to burn, is probably roughly the same amount as Xbox. So probably like 46, 48 loads throughout the entire run. But when a lot of them are literally just like, oh, this rubber-dub load is like 3 seconds longer. Like, you see where I'm going with this, right? It technically hasn't been like properly fully timed, but it is just very obvious that PSN is faster than Xbox. Like, yeah, that is the issue. It is just faster than Xbox. Because skipping Plank Area 2 and Knucklehead and the bounce warp to then walk to Area 2, that entire process takes like, I'd say like just under 5 minutes, and then obviously like you lose quite a bit of time from needing to set up the thing on the skip on PS2. So then it's like, okay, well, I guess then it's saving like under 4 minutes, and then the loads are longer. So it's like, oh, it's saving like a minute. Well, that's the thing. It's saving like a minute and a half. So we haven't timed it, but I would imagine, I would say it's probably like a minute and a half. But then we have Sundae skip, so now it's probably like 2 minutes or more. I reckon on PSN, on an SSD, because on SSD, somebody, I think it was Pepper timed his, well, I think Hoon timed Pepper's loads. He got, like, I think pretty much in exactly 13 seconds no cheese control. And when I tested it on mine, I got like, well, I tested it on live split, to be fair, but it was like 13.3. Like, compared to, again, like 9.2. So yeah, Latte's losing like probably like, I don't know, like 30 seconds throughout no pause storage run on PSN. Because if you mod your console, we'll get to that as well. But then you're like, oh, I want to install SSD. You gotta install, well, you gotta remod the console. And this isn't like Wii or 3DS where it's really easy. Like, the meme exists for a reason. It is because it's really fucking easy. It's not that simple on PlayStation, right? It is a longer process that's just, like, more annoying. and the PlayStation's also PS3 is a more expensive console. Why would you need to mod a PS3? Well, how else are you gonna get the fucking game? It's discontinued, you can't buy it anymore. And then you could say, oh, well, should it even be allowed because nobody can actually buy it, so you have to basically mod the console. The problem is that once upon a time, like, this is an official version of the game. This is something that you could have purchased. It is entirely possible that you had a PS3 growing up, you bought the game, you never lost access to a PlayStation or that account, and now to this day, you can still play the game. It kind of reminds me of competitive Pokemon, and I know that's very different. But in competitive Pokemon, if a Pokemon was ever, like, released, like an event Pokemon with, like, a special move or something it doesn't normally get, they just allow it on the simulator for Pokemon Showdown, because it's literally, like, you could have obtained it. It's kind of like how they allow, like, shiny Pokemon with, like, perfect IVs or whatever the fuck, because it's, like... Well, it depends on the generation, I think, and some other stuff, but, like, that's, like... Yeah. They just allow it because you could have gone... Like, there were, like... For like, Gen 2 Pokemon, for example, there's, like... Pokemon that released in fucking New York. It was, like, the New York Pokemon Center, where it's like, oh, you can get Lovely Kiss on this Pokemon, but we'll give you this Pokemon that has Lovely Kiss. It's, like... Or just, like, whatever move. Growth, you know, stuff like that. Some of them are useless moves, but some of them are really useful. I think Golem got Rapid Spin. I don't want to make this too much about Pokemon, but... You could have, unironically, like, when you were younger, you could have brought your Gen 2 copy of Pokemon, Crystal, Gold, Silver, you could have brought it to New York, and they would have traded you that Pokemon, and it could have had, like, really good fucking... Actually... Are IVs a thing in fucking... Gen 2? I can't remember. But yeah, it just has the move. So now everybody's allowed to use it because, like, it is, like, two people could have legitimately gotten that and then they could have battled each other. Like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. And then you could make the argument of, like, oh, well, isn't this the same sort of issue with Xbox pause storage? Because with that, like, a lot of people don't even want it allowed because you effectively need to mod your console. But that's a bit different because it's like, filling up your hard drive really is just like the worst thing ever. Whereas like, owning a PS3 is not the worst thing ever, it's just not like ideal because a lot of people don't own a PS3. But if you own any PS3, you can mod it in a way to play this. Because getting it, after modding the thing, getting it on your PS3 is easy. The only issue, well, obviously there's issues in general, but basically, only some Slim models can actually get the custom firmware. Every fat can, I think, like half the Slims can, and none of the Super Slims can. However, they can use something called Hen, which isn't as good. It's basically just like a pretty watered down version of custom firmware, but it is capable of putting this version of the game on the PS3. So you can use any PS3 after modding it to, you know, compete in this category. But like, it's pretty obvious still, like, why that's fucking cringe. Here's the thing, right? Nobody wants a Super Slim, but like, what if you find a good, what if you find one for a really good price? Then you're basically obligated to buy it. Slims are good because, well, also apparently Super Slims can scratch discs, which wouldn't be an issue for this game specifically if you're playing it digitally, but if you just want to use it in general. And then Slims are good for like compatibility, well, not backwards compatibility, but it's just good because they don't die that often, and it doesn't have like the scratching issue of Super Slim, and it might be able to do full custom firmware, but then what if you get unlucky? What if it just can't do it? Jesus, the latte nearly fucked that up, bro. And then the problem with getting a fat PS3 is that it needs to be the right fat PS3, because not all of them are backwards compatible. So you need to, like, there is an obvious way of figuring it's to do with, like, the number of USB ports, and I believe the 80GB model was never backwards compatible. And then it's like, oh, well, that doesn't matter for speedrunning this game if you're gonna mod it. And it's like, yeah, but it's nice to have. If you're gonna pay all that money for a PS3, it's like, well, it isn't that much more expensive to just get a FAT that's backwards compatible. But then the problem is that the FATs are fucking trash, and they just, like, have, you know, they can die, they can get the yellow light of death, they get hot really fucking easily. My one gets hot really, and yeah, I never replaced the thermal paste, but like, come on, bro. I do need to do that at some point. So, your options are Ticking Time Bomb, console that may not even be able to get the full benefits of being modded, and console that people just generally don't like, and also it can scratch your discs. So they're all bad options. I would probably say the best one overall is a Slim if you know it's going to work. Well, again, if you literally only care about running this game, then I would say yeah, the best is either like if you can get a Super Slim for cheap, and then you don't care that it's only hen, or you just, you know, take a little bit of a risk with the Slim, and then if you have to do hen, then it's whatever, right? But yeah, that's that situation. Obviously, it's not ideal. Like, I got my Slim PS3 from Cashy, so it was only like £45, but it didn't come with a controller, and again, the hard drive inside was dead. That's another issue. Because of the, AI, you know, the AI data centers, it isn't just RAM that got more expensive. Storage is more expensive. Go look on Amazon right now, assuming this video isn't like years old, go look on Amazon right now and look at the prices of SSDs. You'll fucking notice they're more expensive than they used to be. I looked yesterday, and there was a 240GB Kingston for like fucking 60 quid, and like, I have 240GB SSDs in my Kingston SSDs in my PS3s, and I got them like 2+ years ago, and I think it was 3 years ago, and they did not cost 60 quid. I don't remember exactly how much they cost, but it wasn't fucking 60. It was definitely less than that. So now is like the worst possible fucking time to get into the game if you're caring about PSN. God damn. It just fucking sucks. I will say with Xbox, to compete at the very high level, like, you basically need to mod your Xbox anyway, just because of how amazing the practice mod is. For practicing shit like Fast Sandwich Out of Bounds, but obviously, like, this is different. Like, you literally need to mod your Xbox, unless you're one of the very lucky few. And then like, all of that would have to align. But then if it's on the hard drive, well, actually, you could probably get it back on the SSD, I would assume, because it's tied to your PlayStation account. But then you need to, like, not lose your PlayStation account. Like, you need to, if it's a FAT, then you need to hope it doesn't kill itself. Like, I don't know, man. The whole thing, like, sucks. And you need to be interested in running the game. And I haven't even gotten to, like, the worst of it. The PlayStation 2 version, which is any PS2 version of this game, has built-in stick drift. It has built-in... I don't know if this would be the best place to... I don't know where the best place would be to show it off. And also, depending on which version you're playing, it can have different drift. Oh, actually, before I get into that, another issue. PlayStation 3s have fucking, what's it called? Like, DHCP protection, which basically means the Sony went out of their way to try and make it so that you can't use capture cards. It doesn't, this is only for HDMI. But that's the thing, though. I tried using an HDMI... I tried using composite and component through an HDMI upscaler, and it won't fucking work. Which I did just realize, like, maybe the issue was that it's going through HDMI literally at all. So then maybe if I have the output of the converter go through the input of the... I mean, through the output of the capture card and not the input. Wait, hold on, how would that work? No, because its input would still be HDMI. Yeah, no. But then I can't find my splitters, so I can't use GV USB 2. So yeah, you need to buy, like, an HDMI splitter, if you're gonna use HDMI, which you would want to, because the PSN version actually looks nice. And again, if you're using an upscale, you're gonna get fucked anyway, probably. Unless, well, you might be able to use that through the, but then at that point, you might as well just use HDMI. So you need to find an HDMI splitter that bypasses that protection, the DHCP protection. They usually don't advertise they can do that, because I think it might be, like, not illegal, but, well, I think they might be able to get into legal trouble if they advertise it as being able to do that. So you need to do your own research on, like, which exact models you should buy to bypass it. I am waiting for one. It should arrive tomorrow, and if it doesn't, I'm fucked, because the only day I can stream is Saturday. Well, I could have streamed today, but the thing hasn't arrived, so, yeah. I did my PlayStation runs of no pause storage on fucking PS2, PAL PS2, and I'm using a Fat PAL PS2. I don't know anything about PlayStation 2 models, but all I know is that it has worse loads than my Slim. But it was just all I had available to, because I don't know where my Slim is. Oh, well, it's downstairs, but then it would have been inconvenient to fucking move it around. So I had to use my Fat for convenience sake, and it has really bad loads, and my disc is really scratched because of my childhood disc. So I was suffering. You know how, again, Pepper got like a 13-second well, yeah, 13-second SSD no cheese control load thing, right? Yeah, 13 seconds on control. I was getting to like 25.5 to like 26-second no cheese controls on PAL PS2. That's how bad it. Which no cheese is the very worst of it, but still, like, fuck, dude. What was I saying? Well, I was, like, getting somewhere. With, like, dude, what was I saying? It was to do with, like... Because I was gonna show, like, the drift. But then, dude, I don't remember. It was something to do with the loads. Oh, that's another thing. Hoon said the Kingston SSDs are prone to failure. And guess what I got inside my PlayStation, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to that in the long term. Yeah. But anyway, I guess now I should show you the drift, because I can't remember what I was talking about. Hopefully this will be a good example. Oh yeah, it was the DHCP protection. The thing is, right? This might sound unrelated, but I'm bringing it up for a reason. The Wii, you know, like those Ethernet things that you can plug into the Wii, like the unofficial ones, and they advertise themselves as working on Wii? A lot of them don't fucking work anymore, because they updated the chips and in a way where it's not compatible with Wii, and they just don't say that. So I bought 3 unofficial ones that none of them were, even though they were all advertised to work, and, you know, one of my friends even recommended one of them to me. And none of them worked. I just had to bite the bullet and just buy an official one, which is like 3 times as expensive. For all I know, that could, because I'm using one recommended by a YouTuber. Not only is it more expensive than when because he said it cost 5 quid and it cost me over 6 quid, which I know isn't huge, but I'm just saying. That is like an over 20% increase. And for all I know, it could have changed in some way to not support DHCP bypass. And if that happens, I'm fucked. I have a splitter from China that just doesn't even bypass it anyway. So, like, you just don't even, like, you have to buy the one where they're known to do that, but then those ones are bound to be more expensive than just getting one from China or whatever the fuck, but then that's another expense. That's another expense when it's already so expensive. Anyway, here's the drift. You can't really see it because the line isn't... Okay, basically, the game has natural stick drift. Battle has it, and Incredibles has it, so Scooby-Doo probably also has it, and Rise of the Underminer probably has it. If you hold up, the game naturally drifts either left or right. It depends on your version. I don't know which versions exactly do it, but PSN drifts right, and PAL PS2 at the very least drifts left. even if you don't move at all in a driving level, like you just hold X, it'll still drift left or right. This is obviously toxic, because every line is just gonna get fucked. You can make adjustments to compensate for it, but it'll always be an issue no matter what. It's always going to be an issue. Every trick is just automatically harder. Having a good line is automatically harder. Everything is just automatically harder and feels significantly worse. Like, I feel like, I don't even know if I'm getting it, like... I'm hoping you're all understanding how bad that actually is. Like, it might not seem that bad now. At the end of the day, this has new toy syndrome, and nobody has a good time yet. But, like, when we start getting good times on this console, that's when we're really going to feel it. Just, like, how we are just missing things more than normal. And how things just feel off. I don't even like the PlayStation control. Well, I think the PS3 controller is, like, okay, but I much prefer the... I know that's a very subjective thing, but yeah, I'm just saying. So yeah, the built-in drift. Fucking terrific. So yeah, this is the fastest way to play the game, is to buy a PS3. Again, if you're thinking of, like, long-term use, ideally a backwards-compatible one, or a Slim, and then hope you get lucky. You need to buy an SSD, but not a Kingston, apparently. Then you need to mod the fucking thing, which is more effort than it sounds. If you're only used to, like, modding a Wii or a 3DS or whatever. You need to, like, put this game on there. You need to bypass, for most people, you need to bypass DHCP protection. And your reward, which, by the way, the loads are still slower at the end of the day. This still is adding to the fatigue. Like, yeah, you don't do Knucklehead, you don't do Plank Area 2, but, like, you feel those fucking loads. Even on PSN, you feel the loads. You really do. So this is going to add to long-term fatigue as well. So, outside of what it skips, the run is just worse because there's just more downtime, just more time doing fucking nothing. There's a lot of downtime, well, not literal downtime, but just filler added to SCDA 2. And it has built-in stick drift. And playing on this version is expensive as fuck. Sky suggested, either allowing hard drive for Xbox or going loadless. The thing is that I'm pretty sure that even if we allowed hard drive, I'm pretty sure PSN would still be a bit faster. And PSN is harder because, you know, you have to, like... Well, floating block skip is harder than usual because because of the way it rotates the blocks, it, like, flips you in a weird way that Xbox just doesn't do. So it's automatically a harder trick than normal anyway, but also, like, no buffer is just fucking AIDS. And then there's, like, the SCDA floating block issue, you can't buffer that, and it's just like, bruh. I've gone on about kind of long... I've gone on long tangents before about how buffers feel pretty necessary for the game's long-term health and growth. You can't just think about, like, oh, thing is faster, so therefore it's automatically good. You have to think, like, as a moderator, I do need to think about the long-term effects of something. It is just, like, in its current state, it is essentially a fact that in the long term, less people are going to run the game. It might get more beginners in, but long term, it is going to negatively affect the game. Because the fastest way of beating the most popular category is now on a console that has built-in stick drift, is even less accessible. And it could just get, the SSD thing could just get even worse. And even if you just have a regular-ass PS2, the loads are so fucking bad you'll actually want to kill yourself. So that hardly... It is an option, but it just doesn't feel like a good one. And your reward is built-in stick drift and more downtime, and just... yeah. And it's even more expensive. On a controller that you may just not like. Oh, wow, that sounds like buckets of fun, bro. Well, I do have my Brook adapter, but it doesn't work on PS3. There's like different Wingman adapters, and there's one that works on PlayStation, but I don't know like what controllers what controllers is compatible with. So yeah. This is obviously like in the long term. Also, I should have said this earlier, but this only affects in its current state. It only affects no pause storage and early powers. Because think about it, right? Like, Mindy Skip is still not a thing. So how are you gonna run all extras? How are you gonna compete with Xbox all extras? Well, you can't. And you can't play early powers all extras by default then either. You can't play no platforming levels because you can't do Knucklehead. And for other categories where you don't even do any ball storage things, like AWT, just as a random example, well then the PS2's only advantage then, PSN's, like, yeah, the loads aren't that much slower, but like the FMVs, skipping them instantly doesn't save that much. And then you're not saving time from the lag clips. But that's what I mean, right? Oh, and also, early powers is actually so different on PlayStation that we actually... Because on PSN, it's literally saving like 11 minutes or something, so we actually do have a console split for early powers, because early powers' whole thing was like a point A to point B thing, you just get the end level token for everything. This changes the identity of the category because the lag clips are gone, and you just skip like 5 levels, or some shit. And... well, yeah, it's basically it, but yeah, like, it just changes the identity of the run, so it feels very fair to... It feels very fair to just warrant a console split, which we can't really do for no pause storage because it's just not different enough. If it saved, like, even more and it changed the route more drastically, like, it'd be different. But yeah, basically, now I need to get into the reasons, which is why loadless and hard drive is just a bad idea. It is a very extreme fix for, like, literally one category, because this only negatively affects one category, and even then, it'll be probably a decent bit before somebody gets world record on PS2. You still need to be a really good player. Like, if it's saving only, like, 2 minutes, like I think it does, then nobody's getting it except for me and Sam. And even then, there's all the disadvantage, you know, good movement is harder, like, any lag stuff we were doing, like, is harder. It's gonna be a while. Before somebody gets record on PSN. So it's not, like, immediately doing any damage. And then, like, there's a lot of disadvantages to Xbox hard drives, such as, like, then, if anything, load variance actually becomes worse between... because then there's no correlation between your disk drive, your model, like the manufacturing date and the hard drive. Like, if you buy like two 2004 Xboxes, there's a really good chance that the disk drive is roughly as good as each other. Whereas, like, that is absolutely not the case on hard drive whatsoever. I have a 2004 Xbox and a 2005 Xbox, right? Disk drive-wise, they have nearly the exact same loads. Now, throughout the entire run, my 2005 Xbox is probably literally saving, like 3/4 of a second. If that. Even that sounds generous. Whereas on, their hard drives, one of them has, like, I swear to God, I'm pretty sure it has the slowest hard drive possible, and the other one has, like, I don't think it has the fastest one, but it's, like, pretty fast. So throughout an entire no-pause storage run, they're probably, like, 20+ seconds apart. Yeah, probably like 20. Whereas, again, disk drive-wise, they're basically identical. That's what I mean. And lag just benefits the game. If you're a really good player of this game, you know that it benefits the game. Nobody would be playing, like, long-term without the lag, which then creates a domino effect, because nobody's playing the game at the high level, which means nobody, you know... Game's probably not getting into GDQ, because nobody's playing at the high level to keep improving the game to get into GDQ. You know, all that stuff, like, it just creates a domino effect where it's like, yeah, it'd get more beginners in, but it's not, you know, other than that. It's just actually going to decrease the player count, which just decreases the progression of the game. It slows it down a lot, and makes it way more toxic. If you're a good player of the game, then you understand. like, how important it is, and it would fuck over other categories as well, like Xbox Early Powers and, like, AWT and stuff. Just fucks them over. You know, a lot of their identity is lag clipping, and they just can't do it. And then even if, like, somehow disk drive is still faster than hard drive, but then, even if that's the case, nobody will want to play them then, because then you need to, like, get used to slower loads, which would suck. And, if we normalize, like, not even caring about, like, what model Xbox you have, it's just like, oh, it's all about the hard drive, so just get, like, other than, like, the clock capacitor thing, oh, you just get whatever you want, bruv. Like, literally, you just get any Xbox and then just mod it, because it's all about the hard drive, and it's just random how good it is. Like, that's not... In the long term, that's not... Like, a lot of people are probably just gonna happen to get an Xbox that has bad loads for disk drive. It's just, and then they might even need to buy a copy of the game, and, like, nobody's gonna do that for extensions categories, like, it's not happening, right? Because that's the thing, like, in battle is absolutely worth it without hard drive, but for movie, like, there were disadvantages anyway, but then for movie, it really, like, is just not worth it. And even then, I'm pretty sure PS2 would still be faster. I'm pretty positive it would be, like, I'm like 95% sure it'd still be faster. Realistically, Xbox hard drive would be, like, faster overall, but, like, eh. And yeah, all of that destruction to every category, except for, like, fucking cheap percent. It just gets, like, heavily like, again, the no cheese one frame, where the visual cue is there's practically no visual cue, because how far away the thing is from the token, and it saves, like, 8 fucking seconds. And we'd just be, top level would just be resetting to that. Like, do you genuinely believe that the game will thrive long-term if we allow that, right? I understand that it's a necessity in the very long term, but for now, that really is not a good idea. So yeah, that's why hard drive would just not be a good idea. The reason why loadless wouldn't be a good idea, it'd be an even worse idea, right? What do you think's gonna happen to the runs that are already on the boards? We are not retiming those fucking loads. You can actually, you can go fuck yourself if you think we are doing that, because we are not, right? So what happens then? Either every run currently on the leaderboards gets automatically outdated, obsoleted, they're all just fucked, and then we just have, like, an absolute massive graveyard of runs at the bottom, because you can do it in a way, you can edit the leaderboards in a way where it's like, oh, you just do, like, it'll push, like, if a run is submitted without loads, without loadless, it'll just, it'll force it to the bottom of the boards. That looks really fucking ugly. I know some games just gotta do it, like Mario Kart Wii did it, but, like, that's ugly as fuck. And this game has such a long history. It's not like, you know, if we did this in, like, 2019, it'd be a bit different, but, like, it's 2026. And I understand that 2026 is nothing by the time it's, like, 2036, but that's still, like, pretty hard trigger to pull, you know what I mean? It's, like... And it doesn't even end there, like... That would fuck up other categories, too. Right? Like, Xbox and PlayStation would be... Well, even then, PlayStation would still be faster overall. So loadless would still effectively do the same thing as hard drive for specifically no pulse storage, except then it even negatively affects other categories even more, right? If you allow loadless, OG has an even bigger advantage over 360, because 360 brings it back with, like, the slightly faster loads. If the loads aren't a thing, well, then OG's just even faster, which just makes it, like, even more cringe that, like, it's already kind of cringe that, like, you have to dedicate to buying an Xbox. It would be even worse. It would be even worse. Because then the faster loads would not even be an advantage, and then it just gets all the disadvantages of being on a 360. And then, by the way, GameCube or PS2 would be faster for Hundo and all tokens. Now that's really bad. Like, already, like, they're not that far away, because they actually allow pause storage. We don't allow Xbox pause storage because of the you know, it can heavily be argued that it shouldn't even be allowed to exist anyway, so that's why we only allow it to exist through Xbox Any Percent as a subcategory. But yeah, no, that, like, because of loadless, you would just be able to do pull storage and benefit from it fully. So GameCube would immediately become the fastest version, which is not a good thing because it's GameCube. And then, we have not tested PS2 bowl storage very much at all outside of Sundae. And Xbox doesn't seem capable of a task skip, so if PS2 gets a task skip, then PS2 is gonna be the fastest fucking version of the game! Again! Like, all this destruction just was like, oh, well, you know, Xbox then can compete with PS2 for literally one category, and then the consequence is destroying everything else, And then it would call into question, like, oh, should we allow Xbox hard drive if we allow loadless? But then that'll cause issues such as, like, oh, for, like, early powers and all that, like, OG, like, disk is still faster, but then for, like, cheap percent and platforming ILs, hard drive is faster, and that's just fucked. I don't think it's a good thing for multiple versions to be fastest for whatever because the whole thing, right? You should want to encourage people to try other categories, and that's going to be difficult if they have to play a different version of the game. And they have to get used to, like, that version's quirks. You know what I mean? Like, absolute destruction. But this is the real kicker. This is, like, the fucking... Like, when I realized this, I was like, oh my god, we can never allow loadless, right? The reason why bowl storage testing, why, at the end of the day, okay, like, the level where you can test the absolute most amount of loads, I believe is Rubber Dub, because the objective would be to get the ring token for free, and then you do Macho as, like, a Rubber Dub skip, so that you can not only avoid the very slow ring challenge, but also avoid hitting all the targets and all that. I believe it would save maybe about 5 minutes in all tokens if you could activate it immediately. So that's why the maximum number of loads you can test, non-SB loads, is about 50 on original Xbox. That's what timing's been based off of, original Xbox, not PSN, Dennis 1 loads, right? If the only thing that's being factored is menuing, that means that we can test way more loads. Because the only thing that gets timed then when burning loads is opening the menu, confirming task, and then waiting for it to initiate the load, which takes like 3 seconds. Compared to the, like 8 to 9, like 8 seconds that it takes to when you also include Dennis. And then the final destination load of the sliding and driving level, which doesn't even get factored in at all. You would be able to test more than twice as many loads for every single sliding and driving level in the fucking game. Which means that you wouldn't just test 50 for Rubber Dub, you would test 100, you would literally test 100. Like, do you understand? Like, do you understand? Like, that is unbelievable. Like, yeah, we haven't found a task skip on Xbox yet, but if we can test more than twice as many loads, it almost feels inevitable. And then PS2 can throw its hat in the ring as well. It would have a grand old time, which PS2 might still be faster anyway, because it might be able to just get a task skip, like, really quickly, and then when you factor pull storage, or if it could just get multiple task skips, it could be faster anyway. But that's a lot more of a pipe dream when it can test significantly less loads because it's loads along. Even on PSN, the Rubber Dub thing, you wouldn't test 50 loads, you would test, I don't even know how many, like 30? Like, at most? That's nowhere near 50. But now, with that in mind, you'd be able to test, like, fucking 100. Or more. It'd probably be more than 100. It feels essentially... Like, that's why a task skip doesn't actually exist outside of Weenie, I feel like. Is because you need to do it within a reasonable number of loads. Which is just unreasonable when it just writes to memory just where it feels like it, and then it only very slowly shifts memory corruption. But if you could test over 100, well, that means that all the testing I've done, like, I put it, like, well over 100 hours into bowl storage testing. It's not for nothing, but, like, you know, very minor compared to, like, yeah, I haven't even done half the amount that I could have done. And then we still don't know without a shadow of a doubt if PS2 does require SB-only levels for MS effects. Because it's PS2 and it's weird and different and quirky and yeah. And, like, I don't know, man. I just think that, like... Let's go to a cooler level. Go to Rock Slide. I got Rock Rewind. Rock Rewind is just harder than normal because of the fucking dumbass drift. Also, the game's just darker on PS2, but especially PAL PS2, like the PAL version of the game is darker. Just in general, just any PAL version. Oh, by the way, PSN has slower driving than regular PlayStation, but not by, like, that much. It's probably roughly equivalent to NTSC-OG, so it's kind of whatever. I just thought I'd mention that just to, you know, make sure I'm just saying everything that's different. But yeah, I think the future of Hundo and all tokens would unironically be that you burn, like, 90 fucking loads to skip a task. Like, multiple times. Whether it's Xbox or PlayStation. And that's not a good thing. Like, it already... Again, even the Rub-a-Dub thing, even if it activated at, like, 45 loads on disk, it would still not be a good thing. Because then you're replacing... Even if it's boring gameplay, you are replacing boring gameplay with significantly more boring gameplay. It might even depend on 4th load. Or like, oh, on the 27th load, I have to load away from Dennis because it'll crash, and then you have to keep count of all those fucking loads, and that's even more likely to happen when you're burning even more loads. That'll genuinely ruin those categories. But it could even theoretically aid something like no pause storage if you could do it quickly enough. It's just fucking stupid. And then you could say, well, why not just have an NMG subcategory for everything? So, like, one that allows pause storage and bowl storage, and then another one that doesn't allow it. And it's like, yeah, you could. Well, then the hard drive thing would be pointless on its own anyway, but then Hundo will never have, like, the... Because, you know, maybe there's something that we're missing with the current task, skip. Maybe there is a way to make it work without SB-only levels. And it'd really suck to miss out on that. And even then, what if we just find some other thing that could be considered a major glitch that actually benefits the run? I know it's a bit of a stretch, but I'm just saying. And then those categories would be doomed to be slow as shit forever. But even if we did allow that, that's just a lot of categories that we're adding, dude. And I don't know. That is probably, like, arguably the most reasonable thing that we could do if we allowed loadless, but loadless would still just not just be a good thing. Just not be a good thing anyway. Again, it would still, like, make Xbox hard drive, for example, the fastest for, like, a bunch of shit, unless we just don't allow it. But then it feels like such a waste to not allow hard drive if we allow loadless. Also, actually, the final thing, we don't have... Nobody has made anything that can, like, detect the fucking loads. And it would need to work for every single version of the game. Oh, and also, it wouldn't... there are still in-game things that can... You know, in-game cutscenes, FMVs, like lag spikes. Initiating a load. Like, those things still vary on disk drive. Where hard drive would get the advantage, and then, again, some things would be faster on disk drive, some things would be faster on hard drive. You'd absolutely ruin old tokens in Hundo. Oh, actually, the final thing, right? Resin and Sky both said there's no reason why this Ghost Warp shouldn't exist on Xbox. It is totally within the realm of possibility. This is where the spreadsheet comes in, finally. I was showing it really early in, but yeah, this is where it finally comes in. This does mean that potentially a lot of testing needs to be done, but deaths do not need to be tested. All I need to do is load into a level and then scroll. Again, ZEMU testing is worse, but it's still way better than console. All of this discussion, all of these negative things, they do not matter as long as Xbox has this and it's fast enough. Of course, then, if it takes too many loads... If it takes too many loads to where it's still fast, but then it's like, oh, it just makes the run worse, that would suck. But then I would make it my mission to test, like, everything, every level. So, like, all we need to shut down any, like, discussion about any of this shit is literally for it to exist on Xbox quickly enough. The only thing, I don't want it to be an effect that's so fast that we can replace Sundae with fucking Gesk Ring, because that does actually just suck. Like, overall, it's probably worth it to get rid of Knucklehead, but it's just kind of cringe. It'd be ideal, because, like, one cool thing about no pull storage is that it has no sliding and driving backtracking, except for Rubber Dub and Gesk, which effectively just don't count. But then if you have Gesk Ring in there, then it's like, bruh. Especially because Sundae does have strats, even though it's still too slow post. So yeah, I'm basically doing the Ghost Warp project, and the 2 levels that I'm mainly focusing on right now are Now the Women Floating Block and Sundae. The reason why Sundae, because it happened on PS2, but also because I've seen menu effects in general, like task menu effects on Xbox. It's always small stuff, like a level icon has been deleted or whatever, but PS2 has those in Sundae as well, which implies that, you know, maybe there's something going on there, just in general for Sundae that could, where Zemu could take advantage of it. And the reason why I'm testing Now the Women Floating Block is because a long time ago, I tested it, and something happened, and this is where the Now the Women combat thing comes into play, right? This isn't the only effect that happens in the chain. Later on in the chain, there's an effect where, it stops letting you scroll past Gesk. So, like, you scroll the Gesk, and then it just won't let you scroll any further. If anything, your shit gets stuck, and you have to, like, close... I think you have to, like, close the menu, or, like, press... Yeah, I think you have to close the menu, and reopen it. There is a very similar effect in Now the Women Floating Block on OG. Very, very similar. It is effectively the exact same thing, except it's up to, like, 3K or Rubber Dub or something, instead of Gesk. So it's basically the reverse of it, but it is, like, essentially the exact same thing. I haven't tested that level yet, but I think there's potential there, but that also means that there's potential for Now the Women Floating Block in general, especially as one of them got me interesting effects I hadn't seen before. Remove the light scene on Now the Women's level icon. I have seen that since, but yeah. 18th load moves the glow scene from the green arrow in the menu to the very top corner. I haven't seen that before. So it's looking cool. It's looking good. And even if it doesn't exist in these 2 levels, it's just 2 levels. That's the thing though, I haven't seen menu effects for any other level in the game, but obviously other than dancing around for like Dennis, I haven't needed to scroll anyway. Which obviously then though, it's like, oh well, then in that case I've never seen an icon get deleted, I've never, like, seen it move. And that is a bit concerning, but otherwise I still, at the end of the day, I ultimately, the chain that is capable of this on PS2, the only 2 effects are the Neptune Warp, well, you know, the first task Warp Unlock thing, and the one where it prevents you from scrolling. Those are the only 2 things that happen in that chain. No deleting an icon, no moving an icon. So, basically, there's a pretty fucking good chance that this exists on Xbox somewhere. And you could be thinking, well, what are you doing, you crazy, absolute fucking lunatic? Why aren't you testing the level where this happened in Now the Women Floating Block in the chain? Well, there are 2 reasons. Technically 3. Actually, yeah, 3 reasons, right? Number 1, it does activate on, like, fucking, like, 12th non-SB load or something on PS2. Whereas, it's, like, non-SB times, like, 6. I think, which implies that even if the task unlock thing did exist, it might have already come and gone. Like, we might have just narrowly missed it. Number 2, I'm worried that unlocking, because I haven't done these, I'm worried that unlocking more warps might fuck with the menu in some unfavorable way. I don't see why it would, but I'm just a little, I just want to be a bit cautious, you know what I mean? I just want to be a little cautious. Because, like, what if unlocking Plank 1, for some reason, then changes how the menu is manipulated? Or, because I'm used to seeing... because I'm not used to seeing question marks, like, if I'm not used to seeing question marks, like, what if I scroll down to Neptune, I don't see a question mark, and I don't question it. Yeah, like, I just don't question it, and I just accidentally scroll back up. I think that's unlikely. I think I'd probably notice, but it's, again, I really want to be cautious. It would be so devastating for this to exist realistically, and then I just missed it. I would never forgive myself. The third reason, and the biggest reason, it was fucking Plank Spongeball. It is, other than Neptune, obviously, which effectively doesn't count for our purposes. Why do we need the Neptune warp unlock if we need Neptune to unlock the Neptune? You see what I mean? This is the worst level it could possibly happen in. Because we would have to warp to fucking bounce, enter Area 2, do the wall jumps, unlock the fucking Plank Spongeball, and then use Plank Spongeball as part of the chain. Hell, I think you would collect the token, because Plank Spongeball completely isolated just the token. It's pretty fast. I think we would get rid of guest time, unless we replace Sundae, which then it could be a good thing. Well, no, we can't replace Sundae because of Plank Spongeball, so we can't even do a Sundae skip. So yeah. I think you would replace guest time with Plank Spongeball if that existed. Which is really bad, because the 2-frame, even with buffers, the 2-frame in Plank Spongeball in particular is extremely bad. Extremely, extremely, extremely bad. Because of the steam and how, like, you fall on top of the token, and Spongeball levels don't lag much. Fucking abysmal, and it'd be, like, one of the last things we do in the run. Oh, that reminds me, by the way, if we can't do that, then it'll always be a thing. Like, if it's from a different level, like, that's not Knucklehead, there will always be the issue of, oh, we could have unlocked... I mean, basically, we can, on PS2, you can 2-frame the bounce token in Plank. That is, like, the actual worst one in the entire game, I'm pretty sure. Because you can't see the token, and you're on a tiny platform, and it's too close. The tiny platform, the edge of it is too close to the token, so you can't even buffer, even if you knew where you were standing, or at least it'd be difficult. You'd have to stand on the very edge. So if that happens, then OG's gonna get like, that's gonna be bad anyway. But then if we need Plank Spongeball, then it'll be bad anyway. Then if we need Knucklehead, then it doesn't matter, but then that'd be kind of lame if we can only skip Knucklehead. And then if it takes too long, then PS2 might still be faster. For the record, if PS2 is only saving like 20 to 30 seconds, then it really just doesn't matter. Nobody's gonna get world record on that. It effectively doesn't matter, right? With the tricks being harder and the movement being abysmal, and the more the extra dedication it takes to even play that version, like to obtain it, nobody would do it. And even then, you would need to be like a world record contender or close to it anyway. It wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't. Especially if we somehow found another Xbox exclusive bolster. I mean, that's not gonna happen, but yeah, I'm just saying. The issue is that it's saving like 2 minutes or something. So Knucklehead, but if Knucklehead gets it to only lose like 20 seconds or something, that's not like, at that point PS2 might as well not be faster. So that basically it's been saved. It's fine. But yeah, those are my 3 reasons. I will test them eventually, but I want to finish testing. I've already finished testing now that I'm in floating block, except for those warps. I want to, I'm not fully finished testing Sundae, if I get the thing up. As you can see, there's still quite a lot to do. The good thing is I can kind of like half piggyback off of what I've already done for Sundae, Mimiman. Because then I know to just avoid certain loads, because it's like look at the 3K one, like look how many loads crash. And this is Sundae 1. Like this was also Sundae 1. I'm testing it in Sundae 1. I don't want to test this in other level. If you test this in Ring or Macho, after talking to Mindy, the game will scene reset, and that can cause its own crashes. So I just want to, you know, be able to test as many loads as possible. But yeah, after testing these, then I'm going to test Rubber Dub, and then after that, I'm probably just going to bite the bullet and unlock up to Knucklehead. Or Plank. Yeah, well, yeah, for now, like Plank Spongeball. I think Rubber Dub secretly has a lot of potential, right? I don't know the full details, but Sky said something along the lines of how the Ghost Warp thing is vaguely similar to player disable, and the only level we've ever seen player disable in is Rubber Dub. But that's not the only reason I think it has potential. I think it has potential because both it and PS2 Sundae have the same quirk, right? You know MS effects, I was talking about MS effects? Sundae has them on PS2, but every single time, it only activates for one load. Which is very unusual in itself. But Rubber Dub, specifically Xbox Rubber Dub, has the exact same thing. Not for, well, some of them it can activate like twice, but a lot of the time, it does have MS effects, but they only activate once. Again, just like Sundae, and they both have a thing either like player disable or, in Sundae's case, like vaguely similar to it. So even though I've never seen a menu effect on Rubber Dub, I haven't been incentivized to scroll much in Rubber Dub. I think Rubber Dub is has the third highest chance outside of Now That We're Meant Floating Block and Sundae. I think it has a good chance, a decent chance. If that doesn't work, then, I'm still going to prioritize MS levels, because at the end of the day, even though Sunday's a bit quirky with it, it does have MS effects. So I want to prioritize levels that have MS effects other than Now That We're Meant Floating Block, because of the effect that it has that I want to check out. It's gonna take a long time to test everything, and that's the other thing as well. We don't need to test Plain Sponge, because at that point you would be in Knucklehead. You need to, get Knucklehead's extras. So that doesn't need to be tested. However, the issue is that, well, and then obviously cheat costumes don't matter. What I'm worried about are Patrick costumes, if they do end up being necessary, which I don't think they will, because again, it might require an SB only, well, like a non-pat level, and if I'm right, then Patrick costumes will never matter. But we just don't have enough evidence to prove that, so I did look into before, like, because it was for PS2, I looked into, like, if you needed Disco Patrick for Mindy Skip and Knuckle for PS2, how long would it take to grab the fastest extras? Because you need 20. And assuming there's no, like, menuing, well, like, routing complications, basically, and you're playing at the world record level, it would take roughly a minute and a half to grab all the extras. But if you need to activate it in, like, fucking Sunday or something, well, then, you can use because then you could probably use Sunday too. But then there's no chance of a Sunday skip, and even then, like, why, like, would that really, like, be great to do half an all extras run? The extras in themselves are cool. I think it could potentially benefit no pause storage, maybe. But what about all extras? All extras gets fucking cooked. Like, I think EPAE would probably be safe enough, but, like all extras would get fucking cooked. It might even justify its deletion, like, honestly. And I don't want to say that, but, like, if you have to do half an all extras run, like, like, yeah, you can get rid of the worst ones, like, but that's the thing, though. You would get rid of the extras that add the most length to the run, like Toast Early and like, the Plank one, but then it's, like, I don't know, dude. You're still getting, like, effectively half the all extras run. And some extras can be a bit, even, like, the easiest ones can be a bit tricky to grab, and if you miss any of them, then you might be fucked, and it's only a few backups. And depending on when, because, I don't know, if it has to be, like, I just can't think of a good example, but, like, there's gotta be some caveat where it's, like, or, like, it requires, like, still then, though, the number of non-SB loads it requires, then still makes it only save, like, 30 seconds, and then PS2 is still, like, reasonably faster, and it makes no pause storage worse, and yeah. I know I'm just saying a lot of shit, but, like, I'm just talking a lot, but the TLDR is basically that I think Ghost Warp exists on Xbox, but it needs to activate fast enough, and fucking Plain Patrick, I don't even know how long it would take to get the Plain Patrick costumes. That might not, like, that might, less loads would need to be tested, granted, so, and you can only test certain levels, so testing wouldn't take that long, but that wouldn't benefit the run, really, if that were a thing. But I might still test it anyway, I don't know. But might not need to. That's the thing, right? PS2 is in a position where further testing doesn't really need to be done, because now it is literally just if you can skip a if you can do a Sundae skip. Like a task skip, like not as in like, oh, I warped the guest. I mean, like, you literally get the token, just like with Weenie in, well, not just like, you ideally get the token that you're currently on. And then you go to Gask. But I am not wasting my time testing that shit. Oh, another thing is that it might be possible to, like, do effectively the same thing, but with, like, guitar. And in which case, no pole storage's identity completely changes. Because then, like, half the run is no pause storage, and the other half is, like, some fucked... Well, not even half the run, because you just get guitar from, like... Well, it depends on what level, but, like, let's say you get it from sandwich driving. Yeah, sandwich driving, guitar, unlock, and then... Like, well, you've already gone to at least now, but, like, you probably just do it during backtrack, like, after Dennis. And then the run would basically be early powers with, like, extra steps, or, like, no pause storage with like, half the steps. That would unironically ruin the category. And we would either need a console split, but then Xbox might get it anyway, or, we just delete the fucking thing, or whatever, dude, I don't even know. And then the game would get worse because of it, because it would just not... Because then you just wouldn't have the best category in the game anymore. But anyway, the TLDR... no pause storage is now by far the most accessible it's ever been. And as long as we find, like, a good Xbox Go Swap, this is a good thing. And because if it's... Because even without factoring PS2, if we can activate it quickly, then skipping... Like, okay, yeah, okay, skipping Monumental, I would rather not. But skipping Knucklehead when it has no skips, that is worth it, honestly. That just is pretty fucking worth it. And all extras is already a justified category, but it'll justify it even more because it needs to do. It'll separate it, because movie kind of has an issue of like, oh, the categories are like too similar to each other. Like, that would really separate all extras. It already feels fairly different, but like, that would really do it. And Hundo and all tokens would effectively become longer by comparison, but like not in really a bad way. I think it'd be pretty cool. So yeah, we need Go Swap, and I'm looking. I've been looking all day, every day, from like when I've been able to. It's just that like, Jam is visiting for like a whole like week starting like tomorrow. And the one day he's not here, like, for the majority of the day, which will probably be Saturday, like, I want to stream that day, so I won't have time to record. So that's why I wanted to make the video today. So yeah, worst case scenario, I accidentally made... I accidentally greatly hurt the growth of the game in the long term. And best case scenario, the game is now a lot more accessible, and no pause storage on Xbox might get a lot better. We'll have to see. I'm not gonna look for any more PS2 effects. Especially because I need to be focusing on Xbox now anyway. But even if some shit exists for PS2, it is just not a good thing for PS2 to be the fastest version because it's even more expensive and it has built-in drift. Anyway, I think that's everything I wanted to say. I need to go... Well, I might go and eat now, but after that, I need to test some fucking ball storage stuff. I mean, for all I know, I could literally find it like 2 fucking minutes after recording, but obviously that's not gonna actually happen, I'm just saying. But yeah, at the very, very least, from a more, like, neutral perspective, the game is in a weirdly interesting place right now. Like, because I never thought this would happen. Like, this, like, again, at the very least, this is interesting, for sure. And could help people, like, get into the game. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.